1 second. All right, much better. What up, squad? In this video, we're going to be finally laying down some vinyl floors on the Tacoma. Let's get this thing started. So for those of you guys who are new, this is part 4 of the vinyl floor installation for the Tacoma. And it definitely took a long time to get here. And just to recap of all the work that we've already done, we've already ripped out the carpet. We've also removed the rust rot and repaired that giant hole on the bottom of the floor pan. And that ant colony that we found in the front fender has been completely sucked out with the shop vac. We also repaired that water leak coming from the front fender, as well as lay down the sound deadeners completely on the floor of the truck. If you want the full videos of those parts of the jobs, they will be linked in the description below. Now with that, let's unbox this thing. And for your reference, guys, this is about 0.111 inches. So the plan of attack would be, after letting this sit for a few hours to get the material to relax a little bit, we'll roll it up like a piece of carpet and then just unroll only the back portion. We'll center it along the middle rear compartment along those folds, and then just keep unrolling it forward and cut holes as we need. So we'll see how this goes. I'm sure this will take a little bit of time and a lot of patience to have that vinyl lay flat, but we'll do our best, and I'll share with you guys any lessons along the way as we're doing this. All right guys, so here's the mat. Started to unroll it. I've located the 3 dimples here on the back seat, so I think that should be as centered as possible, at least for the rear. We'll work on unfolding this rear first, and then we'll work forward. So the backrest leg here for the driver's side, so I'll probably just cut a slit all the way down to get this to sit properly. Definitely want to be careful when we're cutting, because we don't want to cut more than necessary. We'll just do rough cuts for now, because I really don't want to work on the fine cuts until everything is completely flattened out. So I'm going to leave this flap hanging out for now until we have most of this mounted, because this allows us to at least make some fine adjustments as we need. All right, now we can put these vents in. Should pop right back in. There we go, guys. Same thing with the passenger side. There we go. All right, now let's continue unrolling this thing. See if we can flatten this out a little bit more. Now we gotta try to let this floor portion sit flat, and it's getting picked up by the middle section here. So we'll have to start making cuts for the mid console. So we'll have to make this cut out here, and I'll probably just cut a slit right down the middle. So now we'll have to start making a diagonal cut this way, guys, because we want this material to shift a little bit more here, so that this driver's side rear starts getting a little bit more flat to the floor. So you want to do the same thing here, diagonal cut. This thing is very difficult to work with, so it doesn't exactly lay flat, since these contours are molded only onto the rear portion, which is the dimples, but everything else, there's really no other contours built into this vinyl. So like here, it sits kind of high. So I think we'll have to do a few relief cuts to flatten it out.
Same thing on this side here. This material is very thick. And it's not like a tablecloth that just lays flat, guys.
Eventually.
So this became an art project. And what we did here is basically just a mock-up of the overall floor plan of the truck. So this is the transmission tunnel, and this is the support structure for the back seats. The problem is this region here on the center of the rear footwell. Since the molding wasn't really done as contoured as possible, this part here is floating. So there's no way to fit that vinyl without having to make the cuts. So the plan would be to make these cutouts the way you see here. I do want to make sure that when I make these cuts, everything on top overlaps with the sheeting underneath it. So if water does get onto the top of the floor mats, it will almost work like roofing shingles, where the top layers protect the bottom layers underneath it. I'll talk you through the cuts when I make them on the truck. So we've located these 3 dimples here, and now I want to try to flatten this mat as best as I can so that we can get the lower edge here. Mark that out with a paint pen, and I'll do the same thing onto the driver's side, marking it right there too. So we got these 2 markings now, guys. Lay this thing flat. I'm using this tape measure as a rough straight edge. So now let's cut this thing. So far, we've made this half cut to get this portion to sit around that transmission tunnel. Now we're going to cut this flap here. There is a contour on the edge that will have to pretty much shape. You want this to lay on top of everything else. Now let's make these cuts. Going horizontal first. This flap here, mark and cut the bottom to flatten it out too. And this portion is already laying semi-flat. So it's like everything's falling into place pretty well. Same thing on this side, guys. So I think that's pretty much it for this upper portion. Now we can unroll the lower portion here and start making our cuts on that one. So I'll remove this so we have much more room to work. So we laid the vinyl as flat as we can at this point, guys. Now I'm gonna cut some slits here because I want to fold this up slightly, maybe about an inch and a half, so that we have some overlap from the top. Yeah, coming together real well, guys. This definitely would have been impossible to try to do without having to make those relief cuts. Like, look how much that fold overlaps. Now let's find this hole. Hole is roughly where my thumb is, right here. Mark that out. And we'll cut a little cross. Try not to stab my finger. Now we'll put the screw in. There we go. Solid, that's not going anywhere. Probably a good idea to also cut the screw hole on the other side. that's definitely not shifting anymore. Now we can cut some of the slits for the cabling and for the vents. Yeah, so those are the two edges of the vents, right where my thumb and forefinger is. And there's the vent. There we go. Now we could also mark the cut for the cabling. Probably do a C as well. We got this laying somewhat flat. Looks like we need to make a relief cut here too for now. Good. I'll mark out the holes here for the front side, and then we can start trimming. Now I'm gonna start trimming the excess material away, guys, so we can flatten it a little bit more. I've done most of the major cutting for getting the proper overall size, guys. Now what I'm gonna do is do the fine cutting. So I would like to basically cut around like these plastic brackets, because that's where these covers latch onto. So I'll cut around these, and I'll try to get as much of this material over the wire as I can in order to protect it as well. So I'll start further up and then just work my way downwards. Alright guys, I'll start putting back some of the trim. Oh snap guys, it's looking really mighty fine. Although I did run into some issues, including this footrest. This is supposed to go right here, just like that. But as you can see, there is a gap under here. And luckily, I did remove the foam from the previous carpet, which is this. It's supposed to lay underneath, so I'll have to install that. So instead of doing that first, I went ahead and just finished up with trimming all of these sections of the vinyl itself. So it was definitely a good idea to do a rough trim first, as it's much easier to manipulate this thing if it's smaller. And I went ahead and did the same thing on the passenger side. And you can probably see from this angle how I made the relief cuts for the seat belt on the driver's side, and same thing here for the passenger side. So yeah, everything's coming together nicely, guys. Now I just want to point out, it's definitely good to lay these two screws down for the back side of the front seats, and then I flattened down the vinyl as much as I can going forward and made these relief cuts and kept flattening it down and made these two cuts and laid these two screws down. And then that's when I finally started laying down the edges as flat as I can and cut those down. So it is a little bit of a process, it is an art, but just take your time and this will come out really good. Separate update, guys. Here are the seat bolts. I removed them, used the OSPHO to convert the rust, and primed and paint. So while this is drying, let's go back to the truck. Alright guys, so now let's try to address this gaping issue here. So I'll have to mount this on the underside. I may have to extend some of these holes we'll see. See how that fits. Yeah, that definitely fits so much better, just like that. So that's a good spot there. And now I'll use VHB tape to mount this. Yeah, that definitely sits much better like that, no gap. Now let's see what we can do with this rear. So I'm going to locate the screw here and the other screw on the opposite end to get this to sit still while we make some more cuts to trim this back. There we go. Sides fastened. Alright, so I'm gonna flush this up as far as I can inwards like this. Then I'll try to make this cut as straight as possible so it almost seems like it's following this line from the rest of the rear seat. There we go. Now I did get vinyl cement, guys, to try to fasten down these seams so that they don't float around. Because I definitely do not want any of the seams to have water penetrate under them. So this whole section here looks great, guys. This is still partially peeling up since the vinyl hasn't completely settled in its final position yet. But yeah, this is definitely a much better way to do this. So at this point, we'll basically just do the same thing on the opposite side. And with a snap of my finger, like Thanos, the other side will be done. Wow, look at that, guys. A little bit of trimming, looks great. I did lay some Gorilla Tape on here for now to see if I can get the heat to get this to form a little bit. This has a tendency of curling up, so before I use the cement, I want to see if I can get it as flat as I can with our current heat and humidity. So that I think right now, today and tomorrow is going to be in the 90s, so should be good. There's my tripod. Yeah, I'm so happy with this. This looks amazing. And here's the view at the passenger side. We can probably pop this back in. Boom. Oh, very nice. Now there's definitely a lot of lessons learned as we were going through this work. And I think we'll stop here today. But do let me know what you guys think about the series so far. So my goal with these videos is really to make them as easy as possible to digest. And maybe in the future, if you guys are trying to tackle this work, you can also follow along and pause as needed. There was definitely not much information online when I was doing my research when it comes to replacing the carpet. So hopefully you guys learned something from this video. And ACC was one of the only leading companies that actually makes these floor liners. So there was no rating, no real installation videos for the second gen Tacoma. And I figured I'll give it a shot. I'll try it out. Hopefully it works out, which ultimately did. So I'm very happy with how it came out. Now here are some other thoughts, guys. Maybe I could have used a heat gun or a blowtorch to somewhat make the vinyl a little bit more pliable. But I'm not sure, because there's also a risk of melting through the plastic or burning up the plastic, and I didn't want to take that risk. Anyways, that's all I got for this video, guys. Make sure you smash that like, subscribe, and hit that bell too while you're at it. And until next time, peace out, everybody.